afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Battle Propagandacast News with me, your host, Imperial Dane, a master of news and all that's worthy of you being told, with my co-host, Basil the Cat, who's currently purring on my lap. So, if there's any sort of weird background noises, that's the cat purring, because cats like to purr. And we got some news for you. There's the USF tech changes mod, but basically they're going to do that because according to in-house data, tournament data, and player sentiment, they feel that the Americans need some support with its tech structure, and that's basically what's happening there. There's been some small overhauls there where essentially they get some half tiers, essentially. So, you know, between the lieutenant and the captain, you sort of get some extra add-ons there. So the lieutenant and the captain essentially becomes cheaper, though they had to switch that a bit because of the theirs. Plus the M20 gets buffed. Also, the anti-aircraft half-tech and the steward are switched between the two. So you go for the platoon command, you get extra the steward, though you need to take up for that now as well, an extra tech. And similarly, if you go for the captain, you get extra the half-track, plus you got some cheaper grenades. Of course, they changed some of the lieutenant and the captain changes because it was initially too cheap. At 150 manpower, it became a bit too easy just, you know, rush forwards towards it. Like, it just became too easy to say you go 300 manpower, you got both of them. Lieutenant Captain, 6 in fuel, at which point you got 2 infantry squads that are pretty good for a much lower cost your opponent has to pay for at a much faster pace. So basically what's happening here is they're still cheaper in essence, but they're not quite as cheap anymore. So you can in essence still, you know, mix and match, but you can't just, you know, rush out with both Lieutenant and Captain begin rolling over your opponent. They all take a bit longer to research. The command post upgrades though are more or less cost the same, though they are a bit faster. Still, you kind of want those up, but the key element, of course, is you can't just, you know, bust out with the lieutenant and the captain really fast. And similarly, the major is then being slightly less expensive to also compensate a bit for that, but just a bit of manpower. So that's sort of what's happening there. Also with the airborne doctrine, the airdrops there you can call in there with in terms of 50 calibers and anti-tank guns, cost less manpower, but non-stick cost munitions, that way making them slightly more, you know, interesting in that regard. And the pathfinders can all be called in immediately. So those are sort of the changes there overall going on with the USF tech changes. I mean, personally, I don't have like a ton of with it. I mean, the usual issue is you sort of like, you know, your opponent locks you down hard with machine guns because they can't fight you infantry wise. You don't get into a good situation late game or begin suffering losses, at which point you have to send veterancy 0 infantry against veterancy 3 infantry. But that's honestly an issue a lot of factions have. The Wehrmacht has it as well. Like if they go send in veterancy 3 0 grenadiers versus, you know, veterancy 3 Rifle and double bars, they're screwed. So in that regard, I don't feel like that's going to change much. Basically, what this means is they can sort of react more flexibly, since, you know, if they push for one element and they sort of get countered there, they do tend to get a bit hard countered. Of course, that kind of leaves out the point where they're then usually hard countering their opponents. Otherwise, like the anti-aircraft tactic, for example, is really good at that. It's good versus infantry, good versus light vehicles. In that sense, it can hard counter a lot there. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can certainly see the logic. And we'll of course have to see it works out. But at least to sort of ensure you didn't just snowball the lieutenant and the captain, which was pretty much mean from what I could sort of poke around with. A lot of experienced players worry that is, again, you can just, you know, get lieutenant captain fast out and just begin snowballing. The M20 change is going to also make it more viable, though of course part of the issue is simply why would you ever go for the M20 when there is the anti-aircraft half-track? That was just a major issue. It was just a no-brainer in the vast majority of cases. So this should certainly also help out a bit on it, not having to sort of pursue it. Though of course it does still risk being outshined by the suit as well, so we'll see where this goes as well. So yeah, those are the changes there. Also additionally, there was a mini patch out, just like, you know, if the Storm Punts and the Flame for Half-Tech plus the T-70's veterancy line of sight. And finally we got a date for the Commander Revamp patch. It's going to be December 10th, meaning we're about roughly 2 weeks away from it. 2.5, and we'll be getting the Commander Revamps with all the new delicious stuff, including buff 250 half-techs, new Stormtroopers, new German Infantry Doctrine, and a lot of other fun things. So that's certainly something to look for there as well, on top of everything. So that is your daily battle news. My apologies for getting a bit later, but just always something cropped up there, so I didn't quite have the time to quickly pop this video out, but here we are. So I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something from it. If you did, subscribe, like, share, comment. If you like what we do, can donate or pledge on Patreon, allowing me to make all of these videos day after day. Certainly Basil would be most appreciative if you sent some money my way, wouldn't you, Basil? Yes, you would, you naughty kitty. So this is Imperial Dane signing off, and see you all another time for another video. Cheers.